23 weeks into the year, we've suffered through 27 shootings in classrooms, grades K through 12. Sadly, it's a safe guess more could be on the way. Tracy Smith tells us about a new way families in one town are fighting back.
The latest unspeakable act of gun violence in this country.
Uvalde, Texas.
An AR-15 rifle.
Buffalo, New York.
The alleged gunman purchased the AR-15 style weapon legally.
And of course, Newtown, Connecticut.
The AR-15 was used at Sandy Hook, was used in Aurora, it was used in Clackamas. Can I go right now and buy one of these myself without much of a check and go pick one up?
Sure you can.
Now! Again. All of it. Again.
Why? Why are we here? If not to try to make sure that fewer schools and fewer communities go through what Sandy Hook has gone through, what Uvalde is going through.
Chris Murphy is from Connecticut, home to the Sandy Hook Elementary School in Newtown.
I'm here on this floor to beg, to literally get down on my hands and knees and beg my colleagues. Find a path forward here.
Senator Ted Cruz of Texas, shortly after the school shooting in Uvalde.
The policies the Democrats are proposing, they wouldn't have stopped this crime or any others. They're not focused on stopping crimes. Their solution is to try to take away your firearms.
Please help us do something before our tragedy becomes your tragedy.
4 months after the Sandy Hook shooting, Francine Wheeler, with her husband David, made an impassioned plea.
Sometimes I close my eyes and all I can remember is that awful day waiting at the Sandy Hook Volunteer Firehouse for the boy who would never come home.
What were you hoping for at that point?
If I could have people empathize with me as a parent, then maybe you would vote for a background check so that if you bought a gun at a gun show and if you bought a gun on the internet, you'd have a background check. That's what we were fighting for.
Mr. McConnell, no.
Later that month, those gun law amendments were rejected by the Senate.
The amendment is not agreed to.
The Wheelers began looking for other ways to make change.
This is beautiful.
Yeah. A lot of it I'm like, I don't know what that is, but it's awesome. You know?
That's what abstract art is all about,
That's what
right?
he was an abstract artist.
We'll never stop being Ben's parents. It's just that our parenting experience is now frozen.
Their son Ben was 6 years old when he was killed.
In the small classroom where our son was in school, law enforcement recovered 80 casings. 80.
All from one AR-15 style rifle. In total, 154 rounds in less than 5 minutes.
If I had been told when Ben was born that I would only get 6 years with him, would I have done it? And absolutely, unquestioningly, yes. But what happens after that is part of his legacy, right? What do we have to do to make sure no other mother and father ever go through this?
What the Wheelers and 8 other Sandy Hook families did at first seemed impossible. They sued the gunmaker, Remington Arms, and in February, they settled the lawsuit for $73 million. It's the largest payout by a gun company to victims of a mass shooting.
Who else do you all blame?
The gun company.
The gun company, for sure.
Earlier this month, the family of Andre McNeil, who was killed in the Buffalo shooting, announced they too will sue Remington Arms, which made the gun used at the supermarket.
It's a weapon that was designed for war.
One of their lawyers' first calls was to this man.
How much did you know about guns going into this case?
If there was such a thing as less than zero, I would say that.
Nothing.
Nothing about guns, nothing about gun law.
Josh Koskoff represented the Sandy Hook families. He says he approached the case like a puzzle. First, he studied everything he could about the AR-15 style rifle.
What did you learn about that gun? What is an AR-15?
It's the weapon that the United States military considers the most effective, efficient, lethal weapon for its soldiers.
The AR-15 was developed by Armalite as a military rifle in the 1950s. AR, commonly thought to stand for assault rifle, in fact stands for Armalite rifle. Early in the 1960s, the Department of Defense field-tested the weapon.
This is not for the faint of heart, but it is important to know that this is no ordinary firearm. A back wound caused the thoracic cavity to explode. Stomach wound caused the abdominal cavity to explode. Chest wound from right to left destroyed the thoracic cavity.
So you can't help but think about these little 6- and 7-year-olds.
Right.
In the late 60s, a semi-automatic version was made for civilians. And by the time of the Sandy Hook massacre, Remington Arms and their Bushmaster brand had the most popular AR-15 style rifles on the market.
Up until 2005, they sold about 100,000 units a year. By 2012, the year of the shooting, they're up to 2.1 million. And the weapon itself didn't change. So what changed? The marketing.
And there was another change that may have emboldened gun manufacturers. A little talked about law passed in 2005, known as PLACA, Protection of Lawful Commerce in Arms Act. It's a way to protect gun companies from liability for shootings.
It basically eliminates the common law rights that people would otherwise have to bring a lawsuit against automobile industry or tobacco industry or pharmaceutical industry.
But the law contains a few exceptions, including one that allowed Koskoff to go after how the gun was marketed.
Until our case, I think people thought of it as a perfect immunity that couldn't ever be overcome. But they engaged in marketing that anybody would say was just beyond the pale, immoral, unethical.
Koskoff says Remington not only aimed ads like this at lonely young men, they highlighted the gun's ability to inflict mass casualties.
This one says, forces of opposition, bow down, you're single-handedly outnumbered.
There's no non-criminal use for making your forces of opposition bow down in our neighborhoods and our towns. That's an assault, period.
According to Koskoff, the key to the case was tying the Remington marketing to the 20-year-old shooter at the Sandy Hook Elementary School.
He didn't go out and buy the gun. His mom bought the gun and then just left it unlocked.
But that's the way marketing works. Marketing isn't targeting the purchaser. They're targeting the end user. No better example of this than Disney. Disney's not marketing their products to us. They're marketing it to our kids. They didn't aggressively market their combat weapon to a suburban housewife. They aggressively marketed a combat weapon to her troubled son.
The Sandy Hook shooter was a frequent player of the video game Call of Duty. Koskoff had played the game with his own son and saw something familiar in a crime scene photograph.
This is the floor of the first grade classroom, and it's 2 30-round magazines duct taped together.
Correct.
From Call of Duty. You knew what this looked like.
And I knew what the purpose was.
And the purpose?
When you were playing the game, it allowed for almost zero downtime to quote-unquote change mags.
So you fire 30 shots, flip
You could
it.
kill 60 people with this instead of 30 with almost no lag.
The simulated gun in Call of Duty was Remington's Bushmaster ACR. Koskoff says Remington Arms licensed the AR-15 style gun for the video game. It was part of the gun company's marketing plan.
This allowed children and teenagers to experience what it was like to use a combat weapon. You could feel the vibrations of the controller. Before this, to actually understand how a weapon worked or felt, you'd have to go to a gun range. And no gun seller is going to have a child come in and test out an AR-15. But they don't have to anymore.
So a kid could be sitting on his couch feeling what an AR-15 felt like to shoot?
There are kids sitting on the couch right now doing exactly that.
Like many parents, David and Francine Wheeler hadn't seen any of the Remington marketing until this case.
I was like, you gotta be kidding me.
Unbelievable. My first thought was, do you think this is a game? My son is gone.
Our legal system has given us some justice today.
Josh Koskoff says the settlement's $73 million will be distributed among the 9 plaintiff families. And Remington's internal memos, also turned over in the agreement, will be released to the public.
What will these documents show?
It'll just teach us a lesson that we've all learned, which is that greed kills.
He says the case is about corporate misconduct, not politics.
This company just crossed a line, and it exposes all of us to risk. The shooter at Sandy Hook didn't line up children of gun owners and children of non-gun owners or Democrats and Republicans. He shot everybody.
Gun industry representatives argue the Remington suit is unusual because it was settled after Remington went bankrupt. In a statement, the National Shooting Sports Foundation, a firearm trade association, said, "The settlement orchestrated by insurance companies has no impact on the strength and efficacy of PLACA, which remains the law of the land. PLACA will continue to block baseless lawsuits that attempt to blame lawful industry companies for the criminal acts of third parties."
When people say, "How do you live?" I say, "Well, how do I not live?"
Right.
You know?
Francine and David Wheeler have always said they wanted to save other families from going through what they have. The events of recent weeks show their lawsuit hasn't stopped mass shootings. But, they say, it's a start.
We hope that this will make changes in the future. I have hope. I always have. I've never given up hope. Otherwise, I probably would have never left my bed.
And you're still hopeful.
Yeah, and I grieve. I have both at the same time, every day. But I have hope, yeah.